Welcome back to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm Joey Dwyer here after Vanderbilt's 84-77 loss at the hands of LSU. And to say the least, it'll be a rough ride home for Vanderbilt from Baton Rouge. Feels like Vanderbilt was maybe on the bubble heading into today. They were in Joe Lunardi's considered list. That's out the window now. Vanderbilt's at-large resume is all but gone. Even if they went out, probably still going to have to win the SEC tournament. To get in the tournament, probably going to have to get the auto bid, and that's certainly not a position that we thought Vanderbilt would be in heading into tonight, but this one had trap game written all over it, and Vanderbilt fell into the trap. You said as my intro or as the title of the story, and feel pretty good about that one. But Vanderbilt doesn't have that much to feel good about tonight. Jerry Stackhouse really was disappointed with their defense throughout the night. Feels like Vanderbilt was one stop away, 1-3 away throughout the night, and just couldn't hit it, couldn't convert when they needed to. Couldn't shut KJ Williams down throughout the night, who had 35 points. Jerry Stackhouse said he was special tonight, and he was correct. And KJ Williams having the night he had brings up a bigger point than really Vanderbilt losing this game. It brings up that the blueprint is out on Vanderbilt, and whether you want to believe that that's important heading down the stretch here, as Vanderbilt will probably play in the NIT. That's up to you, but it feels like the blueprint's out. If you have length and athleticism, guys who can switch on the perimeter, and if you have a big physical big man, it's going to be really hard for Vanderbilt to beat you. And Vanderbilt hit 11 threes tonight, but couldn't really get anything from inside the arc. And or at least in the first half, couldn't get anything from inside the arc, and really just was really challenged to guard KJ Williams throughout the night. And that hasn't been a new thing. They struggled with DJ Burns early in the year, struggled with Cartier Gordon against Grambling State, struggled with some of Memphis's physical big men. Colin Castleton had 25 on Vanderbilt. And then as recently as this week, Janai Broom and Jalen Williams combined for 37 points. And tonight, KJ Williams had 35. So Vanderbilt's issues are really brought to light throughout this week. The offense had a tough time against Auburn at times because of the switchability, athleticism that they faced. Tonight, kind of the same. It feels like as soon as Ezra Manjon went out of the game, Vanderbilt really couldn't get anything inside the arc for, 10 minutes in the first half. And that was a huge detriment to them, and kind of something that you want to look at long term and say, hey, it's going to be really challenging for Vanderbilt to beat a team like this moving forward. This was a trap game and a half. It felt like LSU kind of had the blueprint to beat Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt went into this game maybe not overlooking it, but thinking we can beat this team. They're on a 14-game losing streak, but as Vanderbilt kind of gets into this game, they probably realize that, hey, this is a team that can actually beat us. This is a team that has played good teams hard. They've lost Alabama twice by around 10 points or less, challenged some other teams. And although they lost 2 games to some of the league's worst in Georgia and South Carolina recently, it's a team that has talent. Jerry Stackhouse said they have pieces, and those pieces killed Vanderbilt tonight, specifically KJ Williams. And like I said, tonight is not just that they lost to LSU. There's bigger issues here. Vanderbilt's at-large resume is about done, and that brings up more questions than answers. I think Jerry Stackhouse is probably fine in terms of job security moving forward, but that's 4 years without an NCAA tournament berth. Despite the win streak, that's still the result, even with the nice wins, even with beating everybody but Kentucky this year for the first time in his career. Still, if they don't win the SEC tournament, if they don't get the auto bid, season's a failure. And that was their goal heading into the year, is we want to make the tournament. We want to win a few games in the tournament. And with a loss like this, that becomes increasingly difficult and nearly impossible as they head to Bridgestone Arena. Are going to have to beat a team like Alabama, are going to have to beat a team like Tennessee to get to where they want to go. Is it completely impossible? No, they've beat teams like that before, but it's going to be really hard to string off that many games in a row, especially with them losing all the momentum they lost tonight. It feels like heading into tonight, this wasn't a team you want to bet against, and they leave Baton Rouge without any of that magic they possessed, without that flair that they had, or anything really that you felt great about. Obviously, there's still positive signs and there's still memories from that stretch that give you encouragement, but moving forward, it feels like this team is kind of back to square one as they head into Florida, or head into Memorial on Saturday to play Florida. Just feels like there's a lot more at play here than, oh, they lost to LSU. That's a bad team. That's a bad loss. It's a quad 3 loss, and probably one that's going to do Vanderbilt in down the stretch. Also, the blueprint being out is obviously huge as well. The guy who can combat the blueprint, actually 2 guys, Liam Robbins and Tyron Lawrence. And again, tonight, those were their 2 those are their two big guys. Liam Robbins had 23 points on 9 free throws, 11 rebounds. I don't even know how many blocks. Let's see. I don't know. Stat broadcast cut it out. 9 blocks is unbelievable from Liam Robbins, but that feels like a minuscule story tonight. We're kind of considering the total of what this means for Vanderbilt and kind of how they move forward from here. Ezra Monyon, I wrote about, had 7 assists, had 7 points. I think the big difference in the first half as compared to the second half is Ezra Monyon not being in the game. He had those 2 early fouls, had to come out with 17 minutes left in the first half. Didn't go back in until about the 5:50 mark. Vanderbilt had a 5-minute scoring drought in that stretch and fell behind by 8 by the time Monyon was back in the game. I don't think we realized how much of a catalyst he was until we saw Vanderbilt play without him. Obviously, we knew he was important. We knew that he was a huge piece of that run that they made over that 5-game win streak, but Vanderbilt had 14 turnovers tonight. Ezra only had 1. Ezra had 7 assists and 7 points. It just feels like the floor was so much more open when Ezra was in the game. Had that 6-point stretch early in the second half that really got Vanderbilt going. And from there, Vanderbilt actually had a solid offensive half. Let's see, the second half had shot 59% from the field, 50% from 3. The fact that I have to bring those stats up, though, just kind of tells you that maybe those parts of tonight aren't as important, but I do want to give Ezra Monyon some props. Had 7 points, 7 assists, and really was a difference maker tonight, even though 7 points maybe doesn't feel like that. Vanderbilt's got to get more out of Miles Studi and Jordan Wright, though. Jordan Wright had 6 in his homecoming game, was 1 of 6 from the field. Studi had 0, and early on kind of forced some things, only played 14 minutes tonight. Because of that, Colin Smith got his minutes and played better than Studi did. Just really liked what I saw from Colin Smith, especially late in the game, as Vanderbilt kind of had its back against the wall and probably could have lost this game by more. Colin Smith stepped up and made some plays, but ultimately, poor defense down the stretch killed Vanderbilt in this one. Not having really anybody to rely on outside of Liam Robbins and Tyron Lawrence did him in. Trey Thomas was 4 of 10. Miles Studi was 0 of 4. Paul Lewis didn't score. Quentin Miller-Brown didn't score. Ansong didn't score. And Jordan Wright had 6 points. So it feels like there's a lot on the table for Vanderbilt tonight, but LSU had their number. And it's certainly going to be a game that's really detrimental to Vanderbilt down the stretch. It feels like, I don't know if I have the right to say this because I haven't been around as long as probably a lot of you watching, but it feels like the most Vanderbilt thing ever. They're finally on a run, and then all goes down the drain with a game like this against the worst team in the league. Actually, I think South Carolina is worse than them, but in terms of record, the worst team in the league. All goes down the drain, and Vanderbilt's season is on life support, and their at-large bid is on life support moving down the stretch here. Got to win the SEC tournament. I don't know if any of us would say we're overly confident in that, but Vanderbilt's got a shot. That's what's great about college basketball. And they've shown in the past that they can capture some magic. They're going to have to do it a second time, though. It can't just be this one run. Florida's a huge game for them. Maybe not in terms of building that resume, but just seeing kind of, do they have anything left after this? How do they respond? I feel like we've had a lot of those games this year, and that's because of how many nights we've had like this. I think the last 2 Zooms I've been on with Stackhouse have been Alabama after the 57-point loss in this. So just kind of gives you a feel of, hey, they're a good team. They've won a lot of games. They had magic for all those that have a chance to go beyond the SEC tournament even after tonight. I think the next few weeks are going to be big in terms of whether they can make the NIT or not. But they've left too many nights feeling like this. And if they had beat LSU, if they had beat Grambling State, and they hadn't lost by a 57-point margin, or they hadn't only won by 8 against Alabama A&M, you feel a lot better about their resume as we head into March. But Vanderbilt's kind of just behind the 8 ball still, and obviously really disappointing if you're a Vanderbilt fan to kind of see the missed opportunities and see how many just deflating nights you've had like this with this team. Just a team that has shown you a lot of positive signs, but again, just a lot of the same issues popping up. 14 turnovers tonight. Shot 60% from the line, got out rebounded, and just didn't get enough stops down the stretch. That was the big story in terms of what happened on the floor, and just the blueprint kind of being out on Vanderbilt. And it has been out before, but as we move into postseason play, it's kind of what to look for in matchups is, does the team have length and athleticism, and how physical are they down low? Vanderbilt's going to have trouble with both those things. Probably going to be more reliant on Robbins offensively and going to be more reliant on the three ball to win those games. But as we move forward, next few games suddenly become a lot less important, and the SEC tournament becomes more and more important. So appreciate you guys sticking with me throughout the year. If you've watched a lot of these videos on nights like this and nights in Memorial where it feels like there's just buzz in the air, we're here to cover all of it. So read our work at vandysports.com and subscribe if you haven't to the channel. I appreciate you guys watching. Although this might not be the best time to ask for a subscription, I appreciate you guys anyway. And God bless. Peace.